This lesson will explain some additional terms about the useful load of an aircraft, the center of gravity, and the center of gravity range and limits, and how to conduct extreme or adverse condition checks. Additional information on these topics can be found in the FAA General Handbook 8083-30, Chapter 4. The useful load of an aircraft is the difference between the maximum gross weight of the aircraft, which can be found in the type certificate data sheet, and the empty weight of the aircraft, which can be found in that aircraft's weight and balance records. The useful load includes items such as crew members, passengers, cargo, usable fuel, and baggage. For aircraft certified after 1978, engine oil is part of the empty weight of the aircraft and is not part of the useful load. The useful load also includes removable ballast. If an aircraft were to be suspended from its center of gravity, the aircraft would not have a tendency to tilt up or down. The center of gravity limits are the forward and aft points between which the center of gravity of an aircraft must remain during the entire course of a flight to maintain safety and efficiency during flight. These limits are subject to change during the course of a flight as fuel is burned off and the weight of the aircraft is thus reduced. An extreme condition check involves two checks, a forward extreme condition check and an aft extreme condition check. Fuel tanks ahead of the forward center of gravity limit must be filled to capacity for a forward extreme condition check, and fuel tanks behind the aft CG limit must be filled to capacity for an aft extreme condition check. At all other times, the fuel tanks must be filled to the minimum fuel level for extreme condition checks. Adverse loaded center of gravity checks are done after some alterations to determine whether or not it is possible to load the aircraft in such a way that its operational center of gravity will fall outside the allowable limits. For the forward condition check, we want to make the aircraft as nose heavy as possible to determine if the aircraft can be loaded in such a manner as to make its center of gravity move ahead of its forward center of gravity limit. We do this by filling up any fuel tanks, baggage areas, and seats ahead of the forward CG limit and leaving the areas behind the forward limit empty, with two exceptions. There must always be a pilot in the pilot seat, and fuel tanks behind the forward limit must be filled to the minimum fuel level. If when loaded in this manner, the aircraft's center of gravity remains behind its forward center of gravity limit, the aircraft is said to have passed its forward extreme condition check. Let us perform an extreme condition check for the aircraft pictured on the left with an empty weight of 1,450 pounds and an empty weight center of gravity at 98.5 inches from the datum, with a 180 horsepower engine. It has a forward CG limit of 81.8 inches from the datum. It has an aft CG limit of 116.4 inches. It has one fuel tank with a 50-gallon capacity at 68.3 inches. The pilot and front seat passenger are located at 88.6 inches. The two back seat passengers are located at 112.9 inches, and the baggage compartment has a 120-pound capacity and is located at 122.1 inches. To conduct our forward condition check of this aircraft, let us start with an item, weight, arm, moment chart, such as we have used before. The first item to add to this chart is the empty weight and empty weight center of gravity of the aircraft. Then we multiply those values to get the moment for the empty aircraft. Because the fuel tank is ahead of the forward CG limit and we are conducting a forward CG check, we must fill the fuel tank to capacity. With a capacity of 50 gallons and aviation fuel weighing 6 pounds per gallon, we have a total weight for fuel of 300 pounds at 68.3 inches. Because we must always have a pilot, regardless of the location of the pilot's seat, we will use 170 pounds for the pilot at 88.6 inches. 170 pounds is the average weight of pilots and passengers the FAA uses for weight and balance calculations. Because the passenger seats and baggage area are behind the forward CG limit and we are conducting a forward CG check, we will leave them empty. Once we have calculated individual moments for our aircraft, fuel, and pilot, we will sum these values together to set a total moment. We will then add our individual weights together to get a total weight. Divide our total moment by our total weight to get the center of gravity of our forward condition check of 92.9 inches. 92.9 inches lies between our forward and aft CG limits, so we have determined that this aircraft passed its forward condition check. We will make an aft condition check of this aircraft much like we performed our forward condition check. We will start again with an item, weight, arm moment chart that includes the aircraft empty weight and empty weight center of gravity. It will include the pilot, full fuel for any fuel tanks behind the aft limit, minimum fuel for fuel tanks ahead of the aft limit, and we will fill up all the passenger seats and baggage compartments behind the aft limit and leave those ahead of the aft limit empty. We will conduct our aft CG limit check for this aircraft much like we did our forward CG check, except now we want to make the tail end as heavy as possible. We accomplish this by filling the baggage compartment to capacity because it lies behind the aft CG limit and leaving the passenger seats empty as they are ahead of the aft limit. We must again include the pilot seat because we must always have a pilot for these condition checks, and because the fuel tank is ahead of the aft limit and we are conducting an aft CG check, we use minimum fuel for our calculations. Again, we will start with an item, weight, arm, moment chart. We will begin to complete this chart by listing the aircraft in the item column and including its empty weight in the weight column and its empty weight center of gravity in the arm column. Next, we will add fuel in the item column and calculate minimum fuel by multiplying the engine horsepower of 180 by 1/2 to get 90 pounds of fuel, whose location of 68.3 inches was given. Next, we will add a pilot of 170 pounds at 88.6 inches, and then we will add 120 pounds of baggage at 122.1 inches. Now we calculate an individual moment for each item. Sum the individual moments to get a total moment. Sum the individual weights to get a total weight. Again, divide the total moment by the total weight to get the CG for an aft condition check of 97.6 inches. 97.6 inches lies between the forward limit of 81.8 inches and the aft limit of 116.4 inches. So this aircraft has passed its aft condition check.